in order to be a feminine woman, you have to let a man pay for everything on your dates. Hi. So recently, my Instagram feed and my YouTube feed have been hijacked by a bunch of life coaches. I think it's because we're approaching the new year and the Instagram and YouTube gods, i.e. the mysterious algorithm, knows that it's a time where everyone's rushing to rebrand themselves, and so they know they're going to get the clicks and the interaction they need. And one form of life coach that seems to still be coming up a lot, as I had mentioned in my chakra videos, is the spiritual life coaches. And one form of content that these spiritual life coaches seem to be really focusing in on is the masculine and the feminine content. You know, the content where they basically tell you how to be a really feminine woman or how you can attract a masculine man. A lot of this content does seem to be geared around dating, and there seems to be some interesting advice. In order to be a feminine woman, you have to let a man pay for everything on your dates, and then the idea that you're masculine if you have a certain amount in your bank account, because I guess you have to pay for all of the dates. And a lot of the concepts that I've grown up with in terms of masculinity and femininity, or read about from my culture, doesn't quite fit into the way that it's being portrayed in a lot of the content and media today. And after realizing this difference, I thought it would be quite cool to have a look at what the South Asians, specifically the Hindus, say about these concepts. So let's have a look at how South Asian culture defines masculinity and femininity, and how our ancestors basically understood this principle. Now, in Hinduism, the concept of God goes beyond gender, because the ultimate reality that's known in Hinduism is known as Brahman. Now, Brahman has no gender and also has no form. Now, Brahman can take on masculine and feminine forms, but Brahman itself is genderless. And because of Brahman's ability to take on these two different forms, there is the sense of duality within Brahman. The feminine is said to be that nurturing and creative energy. Often it's represented as Prakriti, known as the Earth Mother. And then we've got the masculine, which is usually represented as conscious energy, known as Purusha. And the idea is Prakriti and Purusha come together and interact with each other, and they basically create life and create the experience that we are currently having. So within this concept, the feminine is that purpose, the thing that we're trying to create, while masculinity is the direction and the drive that it takes to create that purpose. And so we need both the feminine and the masculine in order to actually achieve something. There can't be just the feminine where we have a purpose but no drive to actually go and get what we want to get. But then we can't have the masculine where you basically have direction and drive, but you don't know what you're directing or driving towards. One of the most profound representations of the feminine is Shakti, the dynamic energy that creates, sustains, and destroys. Shakti is not known to be timid or passive. She actually embodies power, fluidity, and adaptability. She is both the nurturing mother, known as Parvati, but also the fierce destroyer, known as Kali, because femininity is known to have two extremes. Likewise, it didn't mean that masculinity was all about dominance, because the Kali within femininity can also be quite dominant. But with masculinity, it's just about that drive, that motivation, that ambition. And so these two energies have to be in perfect balance, and one without the other is incomplete. But of course, over time, this concept basically became overshadowed. Going back to my favorite time, during colonial influence, the Western idea of binary was pushed upon a lot of the indigenous cultures. Ancient times considered the gender of a person separate to the energy or the essence that they exhibited. So you could be a man but have more of that feminine energy because you're more of the creative, nurturing sort. And you could also be a woman with a lot of drive and direction, so could exhibit and have that masculine essence. Both gender and the essence, just they were two separate things. Whereas the Western idea did tend to have gender roles associated with the energy. The ancient concept viewed everyone as having both energies. It's just balance within each person may be skewed in one direction or another. The idea and I guess representation of the masculine and the feminine is most prominently shown when we look at Shiva Shakti, or Shiva and his wife Parvati. Now, Shiva is often said to be the ultimate man and is represented as being pure masculinity. Now, some people may think that that's because a lot of the time when Shiva is portrayed, he is ripped. He clearly did not miss a day at the gym. But actually, that is not what Hinduism says or the mythology says as to why he's the ultimate man. It's actually said that he's the ultimate man because he is half woman. And before you're like, what? Because I was like, what? When I first read that, let me explain. Shiva can take on the form of Ardhana Rishvara, and in this form, half of his body transforms into Parvati, his wife, and it embodies the feminine in its fullest expression. This union is not just symbolic, it shows that there needs to be a balance and completeness of both the masculine and the feminine in order for someone to basically be the ultimate human. In the story of Ardhanarishvara, Shiva sheds half of himself to accommodate Parvati, and this act signifies the equal importance of the masculine and feminine energies within each of us. When these forces unite, there is said to be an inner harmony that transcends any external relationship. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, because like I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of the content that I've seen around the masculine and the feminine is linked to dating and finding that other half of your energy somewhere. So making sure that you yourself are fully one form of energy, whether that's the feminine or the masculine, in order to attract the opposite energy. And yeah, okay, makes sense. But it does kind of put that need for completeness outside of the body. It's expecting someone else to come into your life and fulfill that completeness, while there should really be an intrinsic balance, a balance within self of the masculine and the feminine, in order to achieve that higher level of consciousness when we look at spirituality. So yeah, that's basically a very quick overview of what Hinduism in general says about masculinity and femininity. Now, of course, it does vary from scripture to scripture that's read, and also the time at which the scripture was written, because Hinduism has evolved a lot since its conception to now. Masculinity and femininity is portrayed within this ancient ideology. I think it's quite nice to look at it that way as opposed to assigning it to genders. But let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!